Hello everyone, and a warm welcome to this half-hour webinar on applying the New World Kirkpatrick model to a coaching program. This webinar is coming to you from the South Island of New Zealand, and we are so pleased to see that so many of you are joining us either live or via a recording. And looking at the names of the people who've joined us, it's so good to see so many of our friends who've attended the certification program. My name is David Dewhurst, and I will be leading today's webinar. Alongside me is Mark Harris, who will be looking after the chat window and technical aspects of the webinar. Mark and I are Kirkpatrick certified facilitators, and we are proud to be the affiliates of Kirkpatrick partners in Australia and New Zealand. Before we get into the detail of the day, just some housekeeping. If you'd like to ask a question, please type it into the chat window, not into the question window, just into the chat window, and we'll endeavour to answer it during the presentation, or we'll type you an answer. Again, if you encounter technical difficulties, please enter these into the chat window and we'll endeavour to help you. Thank you. The session objectives for today. As a result of today, we want you to be able to understand the importance of building pre- and post-training activities during program design, understand how to explain performance expectations to learners, and the importance of monitoring findings and making adjustments. This webinar brings to life a case study we wrote earlier this year for the Training and Development magazine that's published in Australia and New Zealand. The article was co-written by Gail and Jill from IHC. It was inspired by an original article written by Jim and Wendy Kirkpatrick in 2013 for the Training and Development magazine in the United States. We are pleased to be joined on this webinar by Gail Foster-Bohm, co-author of the article. Gail is the Learning and Development Consultant for Quality, and she's been closely involved in the design, development, and rollout of the final program. Welcome, Gail. Great to see you here.
Nice to be here. Thank you, David.
Pleasure. Tell me, how did you become involved in the coaching program?
I evaluated the first pilot and then was very heavily involved in the final trial, which happened at the beginning of this year, which has brought us to the coaching program that we're now delivering. Okay,
great. Okay. And the organisation that we're talking about that you work for is IHC. IHC is a not-for-profit organisation in New Zealand with 6,000 employees, and they support 4,500 service users with intellectual disability. In New Zealand terms, it's a large organisation. And IHC is actually New Zealand's largest provider of services to people with intellectual disability. It is primarily funded by government agencies, and so every dollar that it spends really counts. In putting together the program for IHC, the program relies heavily on application of the New World Kirkpatrick model. This model is founded on the work of the late Dr. Don Kirkpatrick. The New World Kirkpatrick model was conceived in 2010 to visually show the importance of and the relationship between each of the 4 levels. Each level was enhanced by Kirkpatrick partners by adding elements that have increased the likelihood of maximizing on-the-job performance and also training's contribution to the bottom line of any organization. Levels 3 and 4 are the focus for today's webinar. A key Kirkpatrick foundational principle is that value must be created before it can be demonstrated. This is a major Kirkpatrick differentiator. Rather than just delivering training and attempt to measure value, we at Kirkpatrick want to be able to influence value. We influence whether in a training role, learning and development role, or HR, by partnering with the business to create that value from any learning initiative. This is how we will realize the full potential of the initiative. And only then can that value be demonstrated and evaluated. So let's look at how we applied this at IHC. So you'll see on the right-hand side an element of the New World Kirkpatrick model, level 3 behavior. So the coaching program was put in place to support a new performance initiative at IHC called the EPIC Performance Framework. And this was a major business and mission critical initiative. Coaching was a major part of the driver package for EPIC at level 3 behaviour. So EPIC was expecting service managers to be doing certain things on the job, which is the level 3 behaviour, and we knew that people would need to have practice at doing that actually on the job, which is on-the-job learning. Coaching itself was going to be a key driver in encouraging, reinforcing, and rewarding whether EPIC was happening on the job and how that was going to be monitored. The first element that the business looked at in terms of putting together the coaching program was to begin with the end in mind. And this is another Kirkpatrick foundational principle. It really involves, first of all, working with stakeholders to identify the targeted business results, and that those final business results, or what we would call effectively the GPS address, are critical because value cannot be demonstrated unless value has been defined in the first place. So given that this is so important, we'd just like to hear from you by typing in the chat window. Why, in terms of putting together any learning or training initiative or program, why would you begin with the end in mind? So if you'd like to just type your thoughts into the chat window, and we'll then ask Mark to share with everyone some of the ideas that you came up with.
Thanks, David. I'll recount anything as anyone types into the chat window.
Sure, thank you.
Neil's come in with, so you get to the end?
Yes. Okay.
Oh, and added to that, that you want. So you get to the end that you want.
Okay, yes. So that targeted result. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. You know, and then I think another important point here is that when you are putting the, your training program or learning initiative together, is that what it does allow you to do is put it together in a way that you're not wasting time and resources. And I think that, Gail, that's something we certainly found at IHC, wasn't it? Absolutely. It was about being really efficient with the time and resources that we did have.
Yes.
David, okay. From Jamila, to be clear about the exact behaviours that need to be exhibited on the job.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
From Isabel, how would you know what success looks like if you don't define it?
Fantastic, Isabel. Yes, absolutely. And I think we were very clear at IHC that what success looked like was helping the business to achieve its 2020 strategy.
That's correct.
Yeah?
Yes.
Great.
And we've got another couple here. You create a clear goal that you work towards in every step. It provides a focus and gives an idea of what the target goal is, and you can begin to plan towards achieving this.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Okay, and I think that would be our experience too with IHC, wouldn't it?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, IHC's level 4 result, Kirkpatrick level 4 result, is to advocate for the rights, inclusion, and welfare of all people with an intellectual disability, and to support them to lead satisfying lives in the community. And Gail, without wanting to put words in your mouth, I think that's what drove us in terms of making sure how this program needed to work. It was really about how we're going to support people.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So let's have a look at how that broke down in IHC. We selected a range of leading indicators, and I think we had about 8, but 2 of them that we're going to share with you now that we shared in the article is that a leading indicator that IHC was supporting its people to lead fulfilling lives was that service users, which are the people that IHC supports, a leading indicator will be is that they're actually achieving the personal goals with staff support, and that service managers themselves are holding conversations with staff as and when required. So if those were to happen, here were the behaviours that we were looking for on the job. That service managers were holding regular and meaningful conversations as and when required, and that they were providing positive feedback. When performance was over and above what was expected. So what you can see from those critical behaviours is that they both had to be measurable and observable. So, Mark, we'll just leave that slide on there for a moment. Gail, what was what were you looking for from service managers on the job?
We were looking to see that our service managers were actually coaching on the job as part of their everyday life, working life, and we wanted to see immediate application post-workshop. That was critical. We wanted to see them using the tools that were provided at the workshop that GMD provided to support their success. The majority of the managers realised that they needed to spend some more time and invest heavily in their staff, so that was something they were going to work towards. We wanted them to be using the personality tool, firstly to understand their staff better, and secondly to use the tool to determine the team dynamics and blind spots and the team personality preferences. We also wanted them to be using coaching for positive reinforcement of behaviour above and beyond what was expected.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So how did you talk about those conversations happening and people using the tools. How did you know that that was actually happening?
Okay. In discussions with the area manager, she was observing that in the workplace.
Yeah.
And feedback from her two weekly one-on-one meetings with her team. So that was at area manager level. Yeah. I worked with the team post 30 and post 60, supporting their coaching sessions, and it was obvious that the majority of the managers were coaching.
Yeah.
I also attended 2 team meetings in that 2-month period post the workshop. And what we discussed there was the progress and the if not, why not, and what were the barriers.
Yeah.
We looked at options for managing difficult situations, and the staff were also observed by their peers, so we knew that coaching was definitely happening.
Great, great. So that's sounding to me like after the workshop, there was a lot of effort going into what happened after the workshop.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
And to be honest, there was resistance too because of the amount of time it took, and they're all very busy people. So we had to get through that. And once they started getting some examples and some real wins, some small wins, that they realised the value in it.
Great, excellent. Thanks, Gail. We've just put up on screen for you a summary of what some of the key points that Gail said, just so that you've got this as a record when we send out the recording. Okay. Thanks, Mark. Let's look at another element now of how IHC applied the Kirkpatrick model. And this is around building pre- and post-training activities during the program design, so that the whole program was thought about right when we were designing the program in the first place. So I'll just run through with you some of those activities, and I'll then ask Gail to share with us her experience. Okay, so it wasn't just a training workshop or a training classroom. It was a series of coordinated activities. There was a pre-briefing to help people understand what they were going to be learning and how they were expected to apply it for the job. There was a pre-work for the learners, and that included a meeting, a face-to-face meeting with their own area manager. There was the workshop, and then there was a series of workshop tasks people were expected to do on the job. There was an informal catch-up at 7 days, and formal catch-ups were scheduled at 30, 60, 90, and 120 days. And that, I think, starts to indicate, what Gail's talked about in terms of the effort that has to go in after the actual workshop itself. Gail, how different was this approach in terms of these activities to the way IHC typically trained people?
To say the least, it was a total culture change in terms of learning and development across the organisation, as it would be for the case of most large organisations. Most of our previous training was simply just to attend and hope that you got there type thing. Definitely no pre-work or even a reason for attending the program, and in some cases some of our staff may not have known why they were attending. They were sort of told to go. Our staff didn't know what was expected of them as a result of attending the program, so no responsibility post-work, and of course no post-workshop support at all. So it was completely different from anything that we've done before.
So how did you approach this new way of having a learning initiative?
I attended a series of regional meetings where our general managers and area managers get together for their 2-day meetings, and these happen regularly. So I attended those and discussed the coaching program and the new process around it and the rationale around why we were managing it this way. Sort of using examples from the Robert Brinkhoff Telling Stories book, and just trying to explain to them that what we were achieving in our learning wasn't really giving us true behaviour change. I also explained to them their role and our expectations in supporting the initiative, because it was very heavily, very important that the area managers and GMs had buy-in.
Yeah.
And then, of course, secondly, GMD came along and also did some pre-workshop programs. Really, you did it, yeah. So it was like a 5-hour session for the general managers and the area managers, which helped support them to understand what their role is and the importance of it. And it would be fair to say that had we not done both, I don't think we would have got the results that we're getting now. You know, it's a bit like telling people something in different ways, and sometimes having an external provider come in and talk the same language as someone internal can make a big difference. So those two, the combination, I think, was what made it work. Okay,
thank you. Thanks, Gail. So just in summary, Mark, would you mind just slipping back to the previous slide? I think we've gone on the slide. Is that possible? So from what you're saying, yeah, just back. There we go. Thank you. It was actually a complete culture change in terms of the way IHC approached training and learning.
Yes.
And it really involved a lot of effort at you getting stakeholder buy-in and understanding before we actually even worked with the actual learners themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we can't argue the successes that we've had with the final trial, and that was really helpful, having all that information as we went around the country explaining the successes we've had. You can't argue it. So that helped.
That helped, yeah. There was runs on the board. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's look at the next element, and that is explain performance to learners. Now, the learners so we're just on the next slide, Mark, I think, if you can get there. Thank you. Okay, so the learners were actually the service managers.
Correct,
yeah.
Yes.
And here are the steps that were actually involved. I'm just going to run through these for you briefly to give you the context. And then I'm just going to ask Gail to share her experience. So as Gail's indicated, there were briefing workshops for general managers and area managers. There was a series of briefings to service managers, who are the learners themselves, in terms of what was expected of them back on the job as a result of attending this program. We had an action planning diary for learners, which provided a written briefing for the program. It contained the pre-work, it contained a reflection log for at the workshop and after the workshop, and it had some prescribed tasks in there that they had to do, and a series of questions that they needed to answer for when they had their formal catch-ups with their area manager. In the workshop itself, there was plenty of opportunity to practice using the job aids that we expected people to use back on the job. And there was also time in the workshop for us to discuss and address any concerns learners may have around their confidence to apply coaching on the job, or indeed their commitment to apply coaching on the job. So, you know, Gail, your experience here. If we think about the 30 days and the 60 days, what did you find at 30 days? This is 30 days after the workshop.
Sure.
And the formal catch-up.
Sure. So 30 manager with coaching sessions, and I also had a team meeting with the team, obviously. All staff, apart from one, were coaching. They were all at different stages in growth in terms of their coaching practice.
Yeah.
I noted some degree of confidence, enabling them to try some new techniques, which was good. However, this was at varying degrees of success.
Yeah.
Most of the service managers realised that they needed to spend more time in services and not in their office, and making themselves available to their team members. Yeah. This had started to happen. And an outcome that we weren't expecting was that team meetings had become more productive as the smaller issues during that 30-day period were being nipped in the bud through coaching, and that allowed more time in the team meetings to discuss real issues. So we weren't expecting that, David, and it happened, and it was really good to see.
And that's really good that you're, I guess, able to buy, you know, the amount of effort you were making in terms of monitoring after the actual workshop itself, is able to capture that this wasn't a benefit that was expected, but you were getting. You know, just picking up on your point, it's just come to my mind now around the post-30. You know, Robert Brinkhoff often says is, you know, people try something and fail. Yeah. But by the amount of effort that went in post, people were at different levels of trying, but because of the effort that kept going, less people failed.
Exactly, and the more, because they were being supported, they tried again, and there was that encouragement at area manager level and for myself, just to keep them going.
Great. Okay.
Try it again. Yeah. Don't lose faith.
Okay. What did you find at post 60?
Well, post 60 was fantastic. I walked away the day I spent with the team, and I was elated. It was fantastic. There was such a huge change and a huge improvement. All participants were coaching, and all viewed that they had more confidence in outlining clear expectations of behaviour change with their staff. Therefore, things were getting done.
Yeah.
There was less stress for them and more time for them to complete their work. So there was a bonus for them that they were actually getting their stuff done instead of doing other tasks. So that was a huge bonus. Many grew their confidence in coaching by catching someone doing something good. Yeah. So getting small runs on the board by good positive reinforcement, and great for team morale. And that was obvious through observations of the area manager, which is great. The service manager as a team were working more effectively, which meant that the area manager had more time to do her key tasks. Now, that was something we weren't expecting either. And I think with the coaching program, the amount of time they spent together, the team really, there was a more cohesive team approach.
Right, okay, so far more collaboration.
Yes, and I mean, I worked with them this week, and they're a different team.
Yeah.
You know, here we are sort of 3.5 months down the track now, so that was really good. The time spent in the last 60 days that they'd been working with their teams more effectively and spending more time in services had really started to pay off. The staff we know for a fact, have appreciated their managers taking time and the interest in their everyday work, which wasn't happening before. Yeah. This made coaching easier and a more natural event. Yeah. And I've got some quotes here from the coaching that I did with some of the team. Yeah. And the first one is, my team is becoming a cohesive team and more solution focused. Yep. The second one is, I have more confidence to deal with the real issues, not the superficial, which I thought is a really good thing.
Which is what we want to get to.
Exactly. Yep. And the third one is, a young guy called Matt said to me, my worst critic has had a complete turnaround and is offering to do extra tasks. Okay. And he has spent a lot of time.
What a breakthrough.
It is, with this particular staff member. Yeah. So that was just, he was really excited about that. Yeah. So I guess overall, at post 60, there was a real sense of pride within the team, and each individual had different variances of that, obviously, but they all feel like they'd achieved something. They were all at different levels of coaching practice at post 60 as they were at post 30. However, there was significant growth with all of the team members, which was really pleasing.
So it sounded like a big leap from 30 to 60.
It was an enormous leap.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. David, if I could just interrupt for a second. We've had a question that I think fits nicely at this point from Colin Neal. Yeah. Yes. Gail, maybe he's asked, how important is it to actually get management on board?
Oh, it's critical. And it's hard. You know, getting that buy-in and having a real toolbox of reasons why is not easy, and sometimes you can get buy-in from some senior execs and senior managers and not others. Yeah. And it's not easy, and in a large organisation, getting buy-in from everybody is really difficult. I think in working with our 3 general managers, and GMD were there as well, I think those meetings that we had, the 5-hour sessions, really did solidify what we're trying to achieve. And we also, I had quite a bit of time in those meetings, in those sessions, to talk about the successes of the pilot, what we learned from the pilot, and how the trial was such a success, which is what we're talking about today. So I think there was a bit of buy-in there simply because they had some real evidence of success. So, but it's critical to get it, and without it, it's really hard. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking of those sessions, Mark and Gail, and this may be useful for people on the call. In those 5-hour briefing sessions, we showed the slides from the Kirkpatrick certification program, which was the data from Robert Brinkerhoff about you get a far more business impact and far more happening of what you want on the job when you put your resources and effort into pre and post active training rather than the training itself.
Exactly.
You know, and I think those pie charts seem to really resonate with managers.
Absolutely, and that's the change in culture that is probably the most difficult to shift, that a workshop doesn't really cut it.
Yeah. Okay, Mark, why don't we just move on now to monitor? Let's move past that and let's move on to monitor findings and make adjustments. A key element of the new World Kirkpatrick model is to search for the truth as to what's happening with the learning initiative and whether the targeted results are actually happening. The orange box on the new World Kirkpatrick model, which is in the center of monitor and adjust, is absolutely key to monitor what's happening on the job and to be able to make changes to the learning initiative and to that level 3 driver package. The same applies to leading indicators, to monitor what's happening, the impact the initiative is having on the organization, and to adjust accordingly. So, Gail, what have you adjusted as a result of the program?
Okay, the biggest adjustment was the realignment to EPIC, which is our new performance management system.
Yeah.
This business partnership required GMD, our HR department, the EPIC provider, and myself to work collaboratively to ensure that the key principles of our 2020 strategy were aligned.
Yep.
I took an active lead in obviously working with the area managers. That made a difference.
Yep.
I think you need to ensure, and this is something that we did do, is that there's no major staff changes or changes to internal systems or anything that might deviate from getting success in the program and that behaviour change that you're wanting.
Yep.
So be aware of that, and that's one thing we have. And in one case, we actually cancelled one program or one workshop because the area wasn't ready.
Yep.
And I'm pleased that we did that. We've rescheduled that for later in the year.
Yep.
Ensure that you've got the right participants attending and clear guidelines on that. That's something that we really did work on this time, that we had some learnings from last time.
Okay.
And creating an internal toolbox that we're working on at the moment, post-workshop, where we're going to be working with areas to see how we can help them post as we move on.
Okay, great. So some real insights there from that monitoring and adjusting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So let's look at the lessons learned so far. You know, the importance of beginning with the end in mind, the detail and effort that needs to go into the program design in terms of what happens pre and post, and ensuring that people have the opportunity to coach on the job. What else would you say, Gail?
I think first and foremost, we've got hard evidence that our service users are using learning new skills, which is one of the main reasons that we did the program.
Yeah.
Our managers have valued the skills and the ability to coach their staff, which has been great. They've had confidence to try new approaches.
Yeah.
And like I said, the difference in skill set between post 30 and post 60 was significant, with really pleasing results. And I think senior managers spending more time in services with their teams, which was one of our key objectives.
Fantastic.
So that's really what we've learned, and that's what we're going to continue to
So some really good lessons there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, look, you know, Gail, thanks so much for sharing that. I'm really pleased with the effort, you know, that you've been able to, one, make with the IHC coaching program, but, you know, and also coming to talk to us today as well about it.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and if I can help with any questions along the way, David and Mark have got my contact details.
Lovely.
I'm very happy to talk with anybody.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. In terms of understanding Kirkpatrick more, Gail is a graduate of the Kirkpatrick certification program at bronze level, and she's currently working towards silver. We have bronze programs which go into the detail of the Kirkpatrick 4 levels and how to apply it to generate value, demonstrate and generate value for your organizations. Our bronze programs are in Auckland and Canberra at the end of May and beginning of June. For those of you that are certified at bronze level, we are taking expressions of interest for a New Zealand program later this year at silver level. If you're in other parts of the world, please visit kirkpatrickpartners.com for details of programs. You may want to get some more resources as a result of today. We've put these up on screen, so when you get a recording, you'll see these. So you can register for some free resources. There's a wide range of resources at the kirkpatrickpartners.com website, and if you subscribe to the weekly newsletter, you'll get access to some quick tips, articles, and news. That's a really rich resource of information. So before we close today, any final questions from anyone that we can help you with?
David, we've already had a couple come through for this stage. So one was relative to getting the manager buy-in, and Gail, it's back to you on this one.
Sure.
What were some of the challenges you faced in getting the buy-in from your managers?
Why? Why do we need to do it different? Why do we need to do it different? And we're too busy to make these changes. We haven't got time. We just want it done. And I'm sure that that would be something that everybody would would face. What else?
And these were genuine reasons. These are lovely people, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Genuinely committed,
Yeah. And that's the thing, they're busy, and they're all amazing people that I work with, and they are genuine reasons. But trying to cut past that and explain to them and be able to show them that value, that if they did it this way, it would in the long term save a lot of money and time, because we're reinventing the wheel all the time, and I mean we've got a lot to learn still, but this is the first step in the right direction for sure, and it is hard, but they were the main ones. It was just the time and why they trying to explain to them the benefits of managing it in this process. Yeah.
Okay, great. Mark, any more questions? I'm conscious it's 2:31.
We do, David. There are a couple still there, so maybe we could answer those in the chat window once we've finished. We've got one relative to getting access to the recording of the session, which everyone that's registered will actually get that. We also have a question.
Mark, we'll send that out within the next 24 hours, a recording of the session which will include the PowerPoint slides.
And we've also had a question from Neil about Philip's variation to this and how we would measure ROI. And I think our answer will be relatively standard to our Kirkpatrick approach, that we don't actually feel that ROI is an approach that we would endeavour to illustrate. We really are looking at return on expectations. And Gail, from your stakeholders, your key stakeholders, maybe if you could just let us know how the expectations are in fact being met for the key stakeholders here.
In terms of the program?
Yes.
Yes, they're being met basically through the fact that our service users are learning new skills and living their lives the way that they want to live their lives.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's their expectation, and that's what we're doing. Yeah.
Thank you, Gail. Yeah. Okay. Mark, are we okay to move on to the final slide?
Yes, that's all the questions we have at this stage.
Right, okay. If you do have more questions, please contact us. Our details are up on screen now. We're conscious it's 2:33 New Zealand time in the afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. It's been our pleasure sharing with you IHC's application of the Kirkpatrick model. Gail, I'm so pleased you were able to come through and join us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Okay. Wherever you are in the world, we hope your day and night are going well. Take care, keep in touch, and goodbye. Thank you.